Let's be honest about something. Most VR games do not break the mold. As these games aren't the mainstream and as such do not get the massive funding that AAA titles get, they aim to be tight and exact. They're wave shooters, archery simulators, roller coaster rides. Not often do they present a strong narrative. Not often do they try to expand the scope of what is possible in VR. However, there are exceptions. Games in the true sense of the word, taking full advantage of those elements that only VR can truly bring to life. Think of Gran Turismo 7, Hitman VR, or No Man's Sky. Another fine example? The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, a game that doesn't merely ask you to swing your arms around, it asks you to care. About its characters, about its world, and survival. It isn't perfect, far from it, but in the sea of mediocre VR gaming, it certainly stands out. And for a genre mostly built on gimmicks, it makes very well use of them. It's good to have you. I'm Vic in VR, and I'd like to welcome you to a new series. This is Fix Spots on Video Games. And today, let's take a closer look at The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. A short but sweet cutscene informs you of the basic premise. Henry, an old scavenger located in the doomed city of New Orleans, offers you a proposition. Help him find and access an underground bunker called the Reserve, filled to the brim with food, medicine, and weaponry. He offers to split the spoils 50-50. As a lone scavenger in a broken world, the risk might just be worth the trouble. You're rowing into a drowned city. New Orleans is falling apart at the seams, both physically and morally. The introduction perfectly sets up the game's themes and factions. It sets the tone. It reminds you that you're not passively watching a film, but interacting with a living, virtual world before the boat ride into hell is over. You arrive at a graveyard, where we find the old scavenger strung up, bodies all around. We cannot save him, but we can still settle the deal. The old bus will serve as our base. Its broken windows and rusted panels will become something of a home during our time in the city. New Orleans is fractured. Two major factions fight for dominance. The Tower, authoritarian, militarized, and tightly controlled by a leader known as Mama. There's also the Reclaimed, led by a man named JB, anarchistic, cult-like, and fascinated with strange mannerisms and rituals. You're caught in the middle, just another scavenger. You are the tourist. Saints and sinners will rarely force you to pick a side in the struggle between these two factions. You observe, you listen, and then you take whatever is left. Early on, you start receiving radio transmissions from a man named Casey, a former soldier trapped inside the reserve bunker. He's paranoid and running out of time and hope.
Waterfall.
What'd you just say?
He confirms that the bunker is indeed stocked with supplies and firepower. A new deal is formed. Throughout the story, he will hand you objectives to further both your causes. One wants to escape, and the other wants to be where he's escaping from. Casey is one of the few fully developed characters in the game. He's thoughtful, he's nervous, he keeps his cards close, and the voice performance gives weight to the dreary silence you're often surrounded by. And then there's May, a disillusioned former Tower loyalist. She leaves behind secret caches, one of which you find early on.
It's almost impossible to know who to trust.
All right, then we're on the same page. I'll get to the point. Why are you helping me?
And she holds the literal key to the reserve, a gambling chip that will guarantee your cooperation. She's bitter, angry, but also incredibly protective of what remains precious to her. Her presence across the campaign paints a picture of someone who tried to do the right thing and failed. She protects the last few remaining close to her from her former home that now wants her head. May will be your second quest giver. Maps and pictures drawn by her daughter will guide us to specific locations, and here you'll often find something useful to her cause, which you'll later drop off for her to find. These locations usually also have something interesting for you to find as well. Most of the main campaign will see you complete objectives for both these characters. You try to find a way into the reserve, into the bunker, while dealing with the walkers, the factions, and the environment. What surprised me the most here are the smaller, intimate quests sprinkled throughout the main missions. Like the one where you meet an older woman who begs you to put down her zombified husband and recover her wedding band from his corpse. A note mentions that the husband dealt with their kids before his demise. Or the story of two former lovers who find themselves on opposing sides, contemplating running off together, trading in their safety for affection. These moments don't last very long, but they sort of stick with you. They give the world its emotional texture. And I kind of wish there were more of them. Because aside from Casey, May, and the rare exception like Mama, who mostly exists in letters and pamphlets, the rest of the cast barely registers. There's potential here, but most characters are just footnotes or one-off, which is a shame, as there's a lot of setup here that isn't resolved. Eventually, you reach the reserve, the mythical vault beneath the city, and the truth is, it's rather underwhelming. Except for a final few choices that are mildly interesting, where you decide on the fate of the people that got you here, the vault isn't all that is promised. Most narratives will back out of finding the treasure. Think Borderlands. Saints and Sinners, however, actually get you there. But sadly, except for a few rooms with a few rifles and items lying around, there isn't much to this promised land. The game simply doesn't build to an amazing climax. There's no final battle, no cinematic showdown. It does leave you with questions as your character escapes the city by boat. Did you do the right thing? Did you make the right choices? And was all this violence worth it? And while the story may not stick the landing, it does stick with you. It's short enough. I completed both the main game, its DLC, and most of the secondary content within 15 hours, but simple and efficient enough in its premise and tone to make it work. Except for a few letdowns in scope and characterization, Saints and Sinners does a fine job of setting up a narrative that expands the choices a simple scavenger has to deal with. Not because it's epic or grand, but because it's personal. You're not saving the world. You're just trying to stay alive and human in a place that no longer remembers what that means. And for a few haunting hours, it nails this sentiment pretty well. Before the main campaign, the game starts off with a short and effective tutorial. The basic mechanics are explained here, such as the many holsters and items on your body and how to interact with them, as well as basic combat training. It doesn't take long and will get you up to speed with the basics before the adventure starts. I think this could have been integrated into the introduction of the main game, when you arrive by boat at the old graveyard, to keep the player immersed in its world. However, the tutorial functions fine as it is as a standalone section, and I appreciate that it's here. The core of Saints and Sinners is its mechanics. You're able to fight, loot, climb, and craft. Each of these are well thought out and well polished. Swinging a baseball bat or a wrench feels weighty. You can't just spam your attacks. Timing and positioning matter. You have to manage your stamina, which is drained by fighting and running, and refilled by eating. Walkers only go down with a hit to the head, a forceful one too. Too weak, and your weapon won't be able to reach the brain. You'll have to jam it in further. And once you do, be ready to yank that old screwdriver out. This gives great physicality to the melee combat, which brings a satisfying feel once you get used to it. Guns add variety and dynamics, but feel a little bit inconsistent. Reloading takes time, and ammo is scarce, which makes every single shot count. This is something I like a lot. Some of the guns can be a bit of trouble when it comes to the reloading mechanics, but in general, they are unique, detailed, and satisfying. But aiming can feel awkward, especially compared to other FPS titles like, let's say, Hitman or The Light Brigade. I was simply less accurate than I would otherwise be. The same weight system that works so well for the melee weapons seems to hinder operating the firearms, as they sway and have more movement delay than other titles do. Still, the sense of power is palpable. I especially like the shotguns. Reloading is so satisfying, as well as being incredibly useful in the close quarters combat you'll often find yourself in. There are enough different weapons to keep things interesting, and enough reason to use a variety of them. The scarcity in ammunition will entice the player to use different ammo types and thus different weaponry. Some of them are much more useful than others though. It's not perfect. Weapons break a little too quickly for my taste. And you'll soon find out that the zombies are more bark than bite. After a few hours, you'll have mastered combating the Walking Dead. Like how you can hold one at a distance with one arm while striking the head with the other. They don't change or evolve, they don't adapt. This makes your first encounters the most dangerous and exciting, where they become cannon fodder in the back half of the game. The zombies can be interpreted as being consistent in this world at least. They always react the same way, simply not a very bright enemy, which can easily be outsmarted. The human AI, however, is not given this excuse. They're quite frankly not intelligent enough to be believable as human beings. They'll have a basic routine, or even just stand there in one position. They'll not notice it when you blast one of their friends with a shotgun 30 paces away. When fighting you, they'll usually try to bum rush you in the same way the zombies would. The way the game is set up, as a freeway fight between you, the zombies, and the sometimes neutral factions, does present some interesting scenarios. You have to prioritize enemies, deal with positioning and cover, and you can lure your foes into another. That's great. Combine this with the stealth system, which can bring a lot of tension to the player experience as well as be tactically advantageous. And the fact that fallen foes can come back to life after a moment's notice. And you have a decent recipe for interesting scenarios. This makes it all the sadder that the enemies can't keep up with your growing arsenal and capabilities, while not gaining any new advantages themselves. Except for the addition of enemies wearing helmets or using more powerful firearms, the combat and interactions do not evolve much. There are no new enemy types to fight, no crazy new walker variations or humans that use wildly different combat tactics. There comes a point, not too far into the game, where you'll be familiar with the game's tricks and completely capable of handling any situation it throws at you. This does not help the horror atmosphere that Saints and Sinners is trying so hard to set up. It gets this right in its first moments, but chooses to slide more into the realm of a typical shooter than a more confined survival horror game. And that's a shame, as there's some real horror potential here. It's just really hard staying scared if you know exactly what's coming. The crafting system is easy to understand yet effective in its execution. You can make weapons, ammo, healing items, and upgrades from components. These components are themselves crafted from everyday items scattered across the world. And this makes looting key. You can take everything not nailed down and stuff it into your backpack, from shoes to telephones and from dog food to whiskey bottles, and either use the item as is or dismantle it into useful components back at your base in the old bus. It's a good look. During the day you go out, explore the world, complete objectives and find items. At night, you chill out at the bus, check and store your loot, craft new items and upgrades, and prepare for the next run into the broken city. You'll also find the free crafting stations at the old bus. It's all nice and intuitive. You'll unlock new weapons, items and skills by upgrading these stations. This progression system does the game a favor, as you choose what to improve and what new toys you want to play with. There are weapon racks in the old bus to store extra arms, but the game also allows the player to decorate the place by putting items wherever they want to. Things don't always stay in the same place when you return here, but it does help to make the place feel more like it is yours over time. It's a nice touch. Inventory management feels immersive, thanks to the VR body system. Your backpack is a physical object you wear on your back. Here you'll store loot, items, weaponry. Opening it feels tangible. You reach behind to grab items or to stash loot. Everything you carry is on you like that. Holsters, the backpack, like we mentioned, a flashlight, and your map or journal. All of these have their dedicated spot on your body, and it is all just very intuitive. I only had some slight problems with the system when crouching down. Sometimes this would not allow me to grab the flashlight or the map, but otherwise it worked just fine. This system adds tension too. You have limited space and must decide what to keep or drop. It's a smart design choice that demands you pay attention to the things you're stuffing into the pack, what to keep, and what to look out for. Climbing feels quite natural, but is sadly not implemented as much as could be possible in this game. The sharp eye will find alternate ways of entering buildings, and the places where it is possible to climb into are fantastic because of the verticality and the multiple entrances and exits. There are, however, not enough places where this mechanic is utilized, which is a shame as the system is decently designed with a stamina system, think Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, a decent control system, and a good feel and sense for what is climbable. I would have loved to see more of this in here. The atmosphere is Saints and Sinners' greatest strength. New Orleans paradoxically feels alive in its decay. Creaking wood, distant screams over shallow water, the soft groans of a nearby walker. The sound design is simply phenomenal. Visually, I think the flooded streets and ruined buildings create a haunting, immersive world. The use of fog and lighting builds tension and dread naturally. You'll have to use your flashlight in some areas too, as it's simply too dark to see properly. And when you're scavenging an old house, holding the light with one hand, opening doors and cabinets with the other while keeping an eye and an ear out for anything hiding in the dark, Saints and Sinners is at its best. It's not a perfect horror game, mind you, but it's atmospheric enough to keep you on edge most of the time. Let's talk about Aftershocks for a bit. Aftershocks is Saints and Sinners follow-up DLC promising more story and gameplay. It is entirely free and automatically activates after the main campaign is completed. Extra content is always nice, especially if it's free, but Aftershocks sadly falls short of the mark. Most of the missions will now involve finding a crate somewhere in the levels. These contain massive amounts of scraps and materials, which you'll be able to use to make as much stuff as you could possibly need. No more scrounging around for ammo or health items. Aftershocks basically turns a survival horror into a straight-up action game. And although the change in pace offers variety in the sense that there is much more focus on direct combat and action, the missions do not offer enough beside combat and action to be very interesting. It doesn't add much to the story. Hints are given for characters that we never end up meeting here. Although these threats might be resolved in Saints and Sinners' second part, Chapter 2, which I admit I haven't come around to playing yet. Some of these quests do have some interesting features. There's one mission with a UV light that stands out. You'll have to use the light to find encrypted markings which lead you to a crate. Or another sees you looting one of the crates in an active battlefield, all the while fending off armed forces. Besides these exceptions though, all other missions play out much too same to keep you hooked. Compared to the main campaign, I found myself rushing towards completing them quickly as I didn't need any extra resources and the places I visited weren't new. The ending was sort of a letdown too. It is suggested that someone might be out for you, hinting at some final confrontation or mission or anything, but sadly, it just kind of ends. No final boss, no post-story. As with the reserve, as with the tower that we can see from our bus but never actually visit, too many things are set up here and then left unresolved. Saints and Sinners Aftershocks kind of meanders. It'll take a few extra hours to complete, and while the gameplay is still rather solid, the stakes are gonna be gone for the story and the player both, which is a shame. I feel like either a bigger focus on the narrative, or instead a bigger focus on the gameplay loop, could have made these final hours much more interesting. For example, I would have loved some extra lore or story, or maybe a more clear setup for the second part. Otherwise, a post-game involving no narrative but a more strong focus on free roaming and player-driven gameplay would have been fine too, but Aftershocks doesn't do enough for either option. Which means that the final hours of the game, to me, were the weakest compared to its strong start. All in all, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners is ambitious, but it's also flawed. It's a game that wants to push VR beyond gimmicks and into meaningful storytelling, and while the main campaign has a good setting and some interesting plot points, it often stumbles in its pacing and setups. Aftershocks shows potential but feels like a missed chance to expand the world properly. Still, this game deserves credit for what it achieved. The VR mechanics are extremely well integrated, the physicality of the interactions is phenomenal, and some of its moments are downright freaky and exciting. It's a VR experience that's about more than just shooting zombies. It's about survival, morality, and tension. It's messy, it's a bit uneven, it's definitely imperfect, but it will make you feel something at some point. And sometimes, that's enough. The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners was released in 2020 by developer Skydance Interactive and is available on Steam, MetaQuest, and PlayStation. I played the PlayStation VR 2 version, of which these recordings were made as well, and as mentioned before, the developer would later release a sequel called Saints and Sinners Chapter 2 Retribution in late 2023. The newest release is from 2024, Behemoth, a VR action adventure where the player fights massive creatures. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this little deep dive, please like, subscribe, maybe share your thoughts below, as that can really help me get this video seen. Have you played this game? Did you enjoy it? Did you agree with me or think I'm talking nonsense here? And would you like to see more of these kinds of reviews, essay thingies? It's a little bit different than what I've been doing before, but it was quite fun making this. Cost me a lot more time than I was expecting to. Anyway, if you guys want to see more, I'd love to dive into the next one. Maybe chapter 2, maybe something completely different. Hitman VR is a very interesting experience. Maybe do a little review on Gran Turismo 7 or something else completely wacky that's out there on the PlayStation Store. Let me know and I'll have a look. As always, it was good to have you. Take care and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.